Hi everybody, I'm Kamina Sue and welcome to this video of my channel Strength Karma. Today I have the great pleasure of interviewing somebody I have a huge amount of respect for, and this is my good friend and colleague Nicky Hewett, who is an expert yoga teacher. She also is a practitioner of Ayurveda and a pranayama expert. So the reason why I wanted to talk to Nicky today is that we're going to be covering something which I think is going to be very important for those of us who may be undergoing a lot of stress, a lot of uncertainty around about now, and that is using our breath as an anchor. So welcome, Nicky, to my channel. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Carmina. I'm so delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And I'm just really happy to be able to share some of these practices. They are incredibly important to me, and I know they've helped a lot of people.
Oh, awesome. Well, first of all, Nicky, just to sort of set the stage for people, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and how about learning about the breath became your passion?
Yeah, so for me, it really started back in the early 2000s. Around 2001, I was living in Bangkok and I started attending Kundalini yoga classes. So I'm a practitioner of Kundalini yoga as well. And the teacher I had at that time was incredibly focused on the breath part of the practice. The practice is very comprehensive. It's everything from meditation and mantra and mudra and relaxation and movement. But the breathing is part of all of those things. It's central to the practice. And he would often start a class which was going to go for 2 hours, and then 2.5 hours later we'd still be breathing. So I came to just do that almost every day, and sometimes for hours a day. And with breathing, it's fantastic because it's the effect of it on you. It's very immediate. You can change your complete state of mind and your physiological state literally in seconds or minutes, so it's very, very quick. So I started practicing that, and I've been teaching Kundalini yoga over these years. And I've found in recent years that actually just taking that breathing component out, I still keep it in my classes, but just sharing that separately, because people actually struggle with breathing. Even students who've been practicing for years, they still have some tension in the body. They still find some difficulties with the breath. So breaking it down and really showing people how they're breathing and how they can change the way they breathe, and then giving them a firsthand experience of that has become a practice for me.
That sounds great. And it's something we very, very often forget about, is because it's like the most natural thing that we do. It's the first thing that we do when we leave the womb, is to take our first breath. And it's like ever since then, we don't really pay that much attention to it. The average person doesn't. So what would be some things that you've actually found, like maybe some common misconceptions about the breath?
Yeah, I think that's very true. People underestimate the power of it. So they really underestimate it. So it's like, I know how to breathe. I've been breathing since I'm born, there's a little bit of I don't need to learn how to breathe. So a lot of people, still have that kind of attitude that I must know how to do it because I'm alive. But there's more to life than just being alive. We want to thrive. We want to have optimal health. So that definitely is a misconception. Another thing I find is a lot of people underestimate how important it is to breathe through the nostrils rather than the mouth. So there's a chronic problem in our society of mouth breathing, and people do it. You see it when they're exercising. They're breathing through the mouth quite often. Like if you walk up the hills, you often see people panting and breathing through the mouth. And a lot of people sleep, and when they're asleep, they breathe through the mouth without realizing, and that's severely impacting their health. So just that simple shift can be a major improvement. It's also, the breath is our most important source of nourishment. So we can live without food for weeks, maybe months. We can live without water certainly for days. We can't live very long without the breath. Understanding the breath is not something trivial. It's so critical. It's fueling our body. It's directing our mind. A lot of people, I even just ask them just to reflect. How does your breathing change when you have a fright? If you suddenly got a fright, would you be sort of just taking a nice slow breath? So people know that the breathing speeds up when we have a fright, when we're under stress. when we're in a time of great uncertainty or fear, we'll tend to breathe more quickly, and we'll tend to breathe more irregularly, so not so evenly, and more shallow. By the same token, if you think about a time when you're relaxed, you feel safe, maybe you're at home or you're with people you love, or you're really relaxed and you're feeling good. How does the breathing change in that situation? And most people can tap into that too. Oh yeah, the breathing slows down. The breathing's more deep. It's more rhythmic. It's more smooth. So this is what yoga is actually. Yoga is the observation of the natural world and applying what we observe to what we do. So if we observe that when our breathing is erratic, when we get stressed, the breathing becomes erratic. By the same token, if we slow the breath down, we send the signal to the brain that everything is all right, that we're safe, and that it's safe for the body to release, to relax, to heal, to repair, and we gain a whole new perspective.
Absolutely. I love what you said about that, Nicky, because I hope people got that. That's such an empowering concept, is that very often we are victims, or we feel we're unconsciously victims to things that happen outside of us. But the breath is something that you can control if you have conscious awareness of it. And that in turn with the practices will actually help you to see, over time, you'll be able to help to see your reality differently. So it's one of those things that can really help to resource people, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's a very important point. The breath brings us to the present moment, and we're very rarely resident in the present moment. We tend to spend a lot of time, worrying about the things we did or said, or, maybe regretting or whatever, or we spend time thinking about what's going to happen. I mean, it's we're all very aware of that right now, but it is a common thing. Anyway, humans want to have certainty. They want to know what's going to happen next. And we simply don't have that. Actually, we never had it before, but right now it's even more uncertain, perhaps, and much more confronting, perhaps. So bringing our attention onto the breath and feeling the breath, not just the breathing, but the actual, movement of the breath in the body, and starting to tune in. The breath is giving us a lot of information about what's taking place in our body and our bodies and our minds, but it's also bringing us back to the only moment we can actually control and know what's happening, which is now. So the power of now is just so, so empowering. When we're now and we're not worrying about the rest of the things that are happening around us, we are fully present and we fully do know what to do. We will always know what to do.
That's right. And the challenge is staying there. So breath awareness is a wonderful tool that you just so eloquently shared about, that can help people to stay there, and we'll get there and to stay there. And so how can your breath then, we sort of gone through how it does actually work. How to practically apply this in the moment. So one of the things that I would love to empower people with, and I'm sure you have the same interest as well, is that when you're sitting and you're watching this, and maybe you don't have someone beating down your daughter with a gun in their hand, like you're not in a place of duress, but when the rubber meets the road is when we actually need to self-regulate in a critical moment. So walk me through, Nicky, maybe a practice that you would share with someone who is new to this kind of thing, and how to be able to apply that in the moment when they need it.
Yeah. So I think the very important thing about applying in the moment is you need to practice regularly to be able to have the wherewithal to draw on that in the moment. So I've had students in the past who have had interesting lives, let's say, and been in situations which were actually quite aggressive and quite violent. And they're kind of telling me the story, and I'm like, oh, what happened? Thinking, okay, so this all went really wrong. And they're like, I just stopped and I took a long, deep breath. And I'm like, well, that only came to that person because they had been practicing every day. So perhaps just to share with you a little simple approach to learning how to practice every day, so that when you do need to stop and use that breath, you can draw on it easily. So for most of us, it's really about relaxing. So it's about sitting still if you can, if not standing or even in movement, that's also okay. And just having an awareness of the physical body, and first of all, just feeling the breath. So just noticing the breath in the nostrils. So breathing through the nose is very important, not the mouth. This is where we prepare the breath for absorption in the lungs. We humidify it, we warm it, and we cleanse it, and we also stimulate the flow of prana and absorption of prana, life. So focusing in on the feeling of the breath, the sensation of the breath, and the feeling of the breath in the body. Like, where does it move? You feel the back move, feel the arms move, feel the chest move, feel the belly move, the ribs. So that's just that's just a practice of observation. And once doing that, then releasing tension, particularly in the abdomen. So a lot of us hold emotional tension in this area. It's chronic for most of us. It's just always there. It's so there that to release it, we feel extremely vulnerable and it feels scary. So it is important to be, just to remind yourself you are safe. So relaxing that tension. And then once you've sort of brought yourself into that awareness, which can happen almost in a split second, like I'm taking a moment to explain it, but it doesn't have to require closing the eyes, but if you can, that helps with the focus, the internal focus. And then just counting the breath. If we bring the breath down to around 4 to 6 breaths a minute, we're going to come into that parasympathetic nervous system. We're going to, come into our zone of tolerance. We're going to send the signal to the brain that we're okay, that we're in control, and that we're able to manage. We know what to do. So just by inhaling slowly through the nostrils to a count of 5, holding to a count of 5, and exhaling to a count of 5, we've basically slowed that breath down to 15-second round for one breath. If we do that 4 times, we've just slowed that breath down to 4 breaths a minute. It's shifted our entire state of mind and our physiological state. So this is a really, really powerful practice. And you can just think on the inhaling in life. So I inhale life to 5. And then when you hold, I absorb life in every cell size releases. And then on the exhale of 5, I release tension. If we just did that for 1 minute, even if we did that once or twice a day, it would change things. And then I would suggest, as a really beautiful practice, is then to set your intention for your next activity. So even if you did that at your transitions of your day, so like when you wake up, just take those 4 breaths. And then what's my intention for today? Hey, I'm going to be upbeat today. Nothing's going to bother me today. That's my intention. Let it be. And, then maybe my next intention is I'm going to, start a project at work. Take my 4 breaths and then, okay, I'm going to bring a lot of enthusiasm to this project, or I'm going to answer this phone call with this kind of intention. It's a real game changer, and it just takes constant practice to then be able to keep doing that.
Calming down the animal, the beast, right? Which is so often it runs us, that being the subconscious mind, but being able to get a handle on it, like put a saddle on it, even for a minute, like with the breath, and then be able to direct our attention to intention, like creating intentions, creating that thread of. I've been reading James Clear, Atomic Habits, and I don't know if you've read that, but it's such an amazing book.
You mentioned it. I do want to read it.
Yeah, and it's really just it's starting something off with momentum, and then just keeping that thread going bit by bit by bit by bit, and then really great things will happen and things can change. So, well, that's a wonderful practice you've just described there. And for somebody who is interested in studying the breath, you just shared a really great practice. What are some 3 take-home tips that someone can do to incorporate the breath in their world? So you're saying having a regular practice, that's really important. Is there anything else that you could add to that, Nicky, to help?
I guess you just don't underestimate the importance of relaxing. So a lot of times we're holding so much tension that our lungs can't physically fill. So just letting go that abdomen, letting go the shoulders away from the ears. So relaxation is so important. Also, the ability to be curious about our breath. So start to listen to the breath. The breath is actually sending us signals, just like our body is doing all the time. It's sending us signals about things we need to pay attention to. So anxiety, depression, fear. Don't try and run away from these things. Try and sort of like, hey, what's the signal I'm getting sent? So relax, be curious about the breath, draw the focus in onto the flow of the breath and the movement in your body. so that you can become fully present. And yeah, if possible, have a place that you can actually sit and do your practice. And a really important thing, be mindful of your spine. So your spine is this central channel which from which radiates all this amazing power and energy. Just really sitting with a straight spine or standing with a straight spine will make a massive difference to the way prana can flow and life can be absorbed.
So when do you think people would be able to anchor this, or using the breath, be able to use the breath as an anchor, like in terms of having it in their personal toolbox that they can just access immediately? Like, how long do you think people would have to practice that for in order for that to happen?
It does need a bit of time. They say it takes about 40 days to really establish a habit. And a lot of times people are talking about breaking bad habits. I think it's more important to bring in good habits. When I started breathing, I was a smoker back in those days. I lived in Bangkok when I started studying my yoga practice. I had a very busy, active social life, working life. And I started practicing yoga and spiritual practice without any intention of changing my lifestyle necessarily, but it changed. It changes you. And that's maybe another good point just to remind people too. Yoga is the practice of coming home to the truth of who you are. And the truth is that we are not the body and mind alone. The body and mind are our instruments. They are our vehicle in this life. So understanding them, managing them is our responsibility to do. And in doing that, we can actually achieve the purpose that we're here for. We all have a unique purpose and we have a unique body and mind. And when we're able to access that quiet space, we actually realize that we're not separate and we're not alone. That takes away fear. And this is the beauty of yoga. And I think breath is a beautiful way into this. So yeah, start with 40 days. Start with a minute a day for 40 days.
There you go, guys. So if you're watching this and you've made it this far in the video, that is your charge. We charge you to commit to a 1 minute practice for 40 days and then see how things go for you. So
expanding from there.
You've got nothing to lose, basically.
No.
So Nicky, that was just been so great, so insightful. Thank you so much for that. And if people want to continue on with their practice, or they want to study with you, for example, where can they find you?
So physically, I'm in Blenheim in Marlborough, but I'm actually starting to do a little bit more in the virtual space. So, and I see that being very important going forward for very many reasons, but also it gives people more access, more flexibility wherever they are. So I'm at yogamarlborough.nz, or I have another website, ancientsbest.co.nz. I'm also on Instagram at Yoga Marlborough. And Facebook, I think, is at Ancients Best Limited. There's lots of stuff out there you can find in one of those places. But definitely looking forward to teaching more breathing, and also some things where I'll be doing some longer courses where people can do short practices every day to help with building the habit. Because once it becomes a habit, you literally will be addicted to your breath, because you'll be just feeling so wonderful for it. So it's something you won't want to stop, but you need to develop the practice first.
Excellent. I'm so glad that you're putting those things together, because I think that'd be super helpful for many, many people. And we'll have all of those links that Nicky just mentioned in this below this video. So Nicky, look, once again, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and what you do to help people. I'm so glad that I got a chance to talk with you today. I know you've got a super busy schedule. And if you enjoyed this video and you've been watching this, please consider subscribing to my channel. I bring out content every week. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.